Hello all, and welcome to Stats. This is going to be kind of our first introduction lecture to how this is going to go. And this is generally more of a simple lecture, and it's just to kind of get us used to this format. So generally what you're going to see is you're going to see something like this where I have the whiteboard shared with you, and I'll highlight things and discuss things as we kind of move through this. So going into this, who am I? So for me, I've been studying sociology for a while now, and one of my main personal interests are art, kind of in all forms, particularly film and music. And when I talk about music, I'm thinking of black metal or death metal. I'm into film, I'm talking about horror movies. And the reason we talk about these is in sociology, what we're interested in looking at is really the relationship between self and society. So the questions of who I am and these interests that I have, that I bring to the table, not only influence how I understand the world, but they also influence society to an extent. And similarly, the other way around, like society, how it deals with things like music, specifically subgenres, like different types of metal and horror movies, influences who I am and how I'm understood by other people. So we're always looking at this relationship in sociology. So the questions then of what can these tell us about ourselves? Some of these stories that we see, these narratives that we talk about, for instance, in horror films specifically, since that's an interest of mine, um, these stories that we get about society are something that also tell us a story about our own values as a whole. So, connection between horror movies and society, specifically the values of society, are connected. An example I like to give, I don't know if you all recall, about 10 years ago, the movie Paranormal Activity came out, and a whole bunch of movies like that. And for those of you who haven't seen it, essentially it's a movie about a family who's going through a haunting. And it's done in a lot of ways described as like hidden, like a found footage, like there's footages of these hauntings happening, strange events. But part of what we could see from that is what is this fear we have of our homes being haunted and us not having control is maybe connected with larger social structures, like the 2008 recession. At that time, people were losing their homes, losing their livelihood, losing their security. So something like that, the film then, it can almost be like our subconscious telling us about something that's going on around us, right? So a little bit more into this, a little bit of basics then. So what is sociology for me is, and it will be for the purposes of our course, is seeing how our own stories, histories, and values interact with and are made by society. So one of the main questions then with that, one of the main questions that we're looking at then is how can we better understand society in order to transform society? So I see this is the big interaction here, really focusing on the connection between understanding society and transforming it. So in order to transform things, in order for us to make the world a better place, in order for us to at least make it more livable for ourselves and our families, we need to better understand what's going on, understand why we have these values, understand why we have these structures that we have in order to better make it more livable for everybody. So then why stats? Because that's the focus that we'll be looking at this term. So this is the framework that I take stats from. So for me then, stats is a way to help us tell stories about our world. Stats is a particular narrative, a particular way of telling a story. So like movies are telling a story, like when we tell stories about our family history, about ourselves. Stats was one of several ways to make sense of who we are. We understand ways with numbers, with ways of understanding relationships between concepts, and importantly, just like other stories that we tell ourselves, it has real consequences in the world. So I mean, we can see this in the point two here, the stats of politics, the stats of society, the stats of race relations in the United States. These are all ways that we help make sense of what's going on in our society, what's going on in our world. So the way I want to then address this, when we go through stats, I don't want to look at it just as numbers, just as equations, but the sort of connection I want to have, as this last part here, is to make these numbers come alive in a way to make try to get as many real world examples as we have while we go through the process of understanding stats. So this is kind of where we're heading as we move through the semester. So what to expect right here, don't fret. I know a lot of us coming in, including myself, when I was going through undergrad, was this idea of being worried about stats being something intimidating, the formulas and the numbers. So essentially then, what I like to do with this is I want to help us work as a team to complete the course. So I have this broken down into several sections here. One, I have YouTube lectures available for the whole semester, so they shall be posted now. You could, if you wanted to, you could sit down and go through everything right now. So it's available at your own pace. Two, all the homework tests are open note and open book. I mentioned that in the intro, but essentially there should be discussion boards. Discussion boards set up for each section as you go through your modules that will help you grapple with and come up with ways to schedule the best way to go about addressing the course. So like in the example I said, for instance, if you work all week and some of your best days to really look at this stuff are like Friday nights, for instance, I would go ahead and post on that discussion board, just say, hey, I'm busy all week. Friday nights are the best time to work for this. Is there someone else who wants to meet this time? You could set up, you could do it by phone, by Skype, by Zoom, whatever works for you, to kind of have these projects be something that's not you're not tackling alone. Okay, so that's discussion boards that coordinate teamwork. And for me, I will be available every day during class time. So my ideal thing would be for you to watch the lecture first on YouTube through our Canvas. And then the second step, if you have questions, bring specific questions to me. Because what I've found in these online courses, because we're all looking at things at different times, it doesn't make much sense for me to go through the lecture every single time. It's actually the best service for you to come in with specific questions. So that's one. The other thing is that we could also expect that I will be on email all week. So if you can't make it at the specific time of the class, send me an email. We could try to set up a time that works with another Zoom time meeting, or I could answer the question or email or something like that. The other thing is basically every Tuesday and Friday work's going to be due. We have about 16 modules, so you could expect that in an 8-week course you have about 2 due per week, and all the due dates are on Canvas already. Okay. So one of the things we're going into, this will be going into our final topic, which I'll have a separate video on. But the basic thing I want to do is kind of root this in our project, root this in collaboration, is that eventually we're going to be looking at our own, doing our own research, using stats to tell the story of a problem that we're facing locally or nationally. So one of the things you could do as we're going through this then is being able to identify problems, and that could be any sort of thing. So for instance, if you were interested in something like saying homelessness is something that seems particularly relevant that we're facing locally. Maybe you, as you're going to driving to campus now or driving around, you start seeing more and more instances of folks being without homes. It might be something you're interested in. And nationally, you could also, you could say this at the local level, homelessness is a problem. Maybe nationally, it's related to the larger problem of poverty or something like that. So this idea then, coming up with a list of 1 to 3 items, they don't have to be related with each other, of local things that you see going on, and that could be anywhere from rent costs locally, all the way to something very specific that's going on, even on campus. All the way to nationally, what are the biggest problems you see going on? That could be anywhere from like things like I said, poverty, or it could even be things like global warming, big things you're interested in. Because eventually what we're going to do, just to give you a brief idea of where this is going, is after we kind of cite these things down, we're going to be moving this towards our final paper. So eventually you'll have the ability to, and we've done this every semester, is to take some of these topics then and be able to look at your own stats, your own data, to be able to construct your own research paper. So we'll be moving from these topics for now, just discussing things you find interesting, you think it is a brainstorming session, and eventually throughout the weeks we're going to go move towards a final paper discussion.